Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Charm City Sideline Podcast. I'm Zach, and I'm here with Bradley and Dawson. And today we're previewing the Raiders versus Ravens game. I think this is an exciting game. Week 2, the weather right now is looking like 80 degrees and sunny. But for the betting people out there, the Ravens are favored by 9, and the over-under is at 41.5. Boys, you have any initial thoughts on this game going into it, Brad?
It's we're trying to get back on track here after a loss to the Chiefs. It's kind of like our only easy game in the first 5 weeks of the season. So I feel like this is everyone always talks about, oh, you can't call games must win unless they're actually must win. But like this is pretty close with 3 hard games after this. I'd say we just need to try to get into M&T Bank Stadium there and take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the spread, it's -9 for a reason. This is a game that the Ravens should go in and handle business. I agree with Brad. You can't really say week 2 games a must win, but looking at the gauntlet of teams that we play the opposing 3 weeks afterwards, this is pretty much a must win for this team. If we drop down 0-2 and go into that 3-game stretch after, it might get brutal pretty quickly. However, I don't think we lose this game at all. I think we win this game, and I think we win it pretty convincingly. Ravens just got to go in and handle business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all agree we need this game as the schedule and the year gets difficult as we go on. But let's jump into the injury report. Today and yesterday, we had some news of Nate Wiggins getting in a car accident. It said that he's most likely out for the Raiders game. Kyle Van Noy and his issue with his eye, he was back at practice today. Today is Friday for anyone listening. And then also on the injury report, we have Adisa Isaac, Roquan on there, but they were limited and full in practice. The Raiders have a little longer of a list, but most of them full practice by yesterday. The only player to be declared out so far is defensive end Tyree Wilson. He's a big player for them. But let's look into some Raiders and Ravens history, boys. The Ravens lead the Raiders 9-4 in the all-time series. The Ravens' first ever game in 1996, as I'm repping today.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. What in the world? The Ravens
crazy.
are 2-3 in their last 5 meetings with the Raiders. Is there a little concern there, Dawson?
No, dude, it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. If you look at all the teams around the league and put our all-time record against them, there's probably a lot more that we don't know of that would be a little worrisome, more so than this one. No, I don't look at the team history or, the history of the two teams going head to head. There's nothing more to that. I think the Ravens are a significantly better team with how the Raiders are playing right now. And I think there's not much to it. I think they handle business, and I don't think looking at the past of what happened between the two is anything to tell of what's to come on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's rough 2-3 in the last 5, but at the same time, it's probably doesn't really mean anything. I mean, we know it doesn't mean anything, but looking back, I remember that 2021 game we opened against the Raiders. To look back, that was a rough overtime loss, right?
I hated that game.
Man. That was terrible. And then
Tyson Williams, baby.
Yeah, there was a Raiders game in either 2016 or 2017 that I was at. Michael Crabtree was just like going off, and the Ravens couldn't. He scored 2 or 3 touchdowns, and so there's been a couple games recently where they kind of had our number. So it's definitely at least a little bit interesting.
Yeah, it'll make it fun just because they have had our number in the last 5 games. But the Raiders have made some moves since we saw him, especially way back then. Gardner Minshew is their new starting quarterback, the game manager himself. He was with the Colts last year. They lost Josh Jacobs to the Packers. He was probably their biggest name player on the team, but they also drafted Brock Bowers, the Georgia tight end stud, 13th overall. Honestly, where I want to go back, I want to talk about Josh Jacobs. Losing him, I'm going to highlight it later on as well, but Zamir White for them is kind of their new feed in and let him ride kind of running back. And it's kind of been working out. But losing Josh Jacobs sucks. Dawson, anything that you've seen from the Raiders that's kind of sparked some interest?
No, for sure. I mean, losing Josh Jacobs, he's kind of been the heart of their offense for the last X amount of years. I mean, he was a 1,600-yard rusher, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's a good back. and I think it was 3 years ago. So yeah, I mean, losing Jacob sucks, of course, and then I mean, you don't really effectively replace him with anyone right away. You have Zamir White and stuff, and then I believe they signed Alexander Madison.
Mhm.
But they're not a Josh Jacobs level stuff. I'm not a big Zamir White guy. I know he's pretty good. However, he doesn't immediately pose a threat, or fear in my eyes to the Ravens defense. But I'm not discrediting whatever. Who knows? He could go crazy. But losing Josh Jacobs is huge. I mean, and then like I said, you don't really effectively replace him. Your quarterback's Gardner Minshew. It's kind of a I don't know, man. It's an interesting matchup because I want to say we win by a lot, but at the same time, as we can see with the NFL, with what happened last night, and it happens every week, dude. Truly don't know what's going to happen. I mean, these underdogs always win games and stuff, so
Steal him, yeah.
you never know, dude. It's a weird league, and it's what makes it interesting. But I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see because I really think the Ravens come out, get back on track, and shift their eyes to week 3 after this win, and hopefully they get out healthy.
And so I also wanted to highlight Mr. Devontae Adams, Max Crosby. I mean, this Raiders team has some superstars on their team. Brad, is there a noticeable player for them that's kind of stood out to you?
I would say Brock Bowers. We talked about Isaiah Likely having the most receiving yards as a tight end in week 1. Brock Bowers was second.
Yeah.
And he made some plays, and they also got Michael Mayer, who I believe was a second-round pick the year before. So they have 2 good tight ends that we're going to have to, cover and not let make big plays. We did a good job against Kelsey last week, so it'll be interesting to see what we can do against these 2 tight ends right here.
So we do have a different segment that I want to get to, but I think it kind of applies to what I'm about to say. The Raiders with Zamir White last year, I think they had him start or be like the workload running back for like the last 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And they were 3-1, and Zamir had 18 plus carries in the 3 games that they did win. So I think there's like a recipe for them that they see. Last week against the Chargers, Zamir had like a fumble kind of early on. They had like multiple, like they had a 3rd and 1 situation. And then right after it, they said, Zamir, go ahead. 4th and 1, didn't get it. Both no yards on it. Like they're trying to get him the ball. It's just, I think teams are starting to figure it out. The Chargers definitely figured it out with their D-line. They were an impressive win. But I think someone like Zamir White is going to be like kind of a highlight in this game for us. We know like Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams are stud wide receivers. I think they're like they're as productive as it gets as a 2. They're not necessarily big names nowadays because Devontae's kind of taken a step back just with production. But I think someone like Zamir White having a big game kind of screws up the Ravens' whole flow, especially if they can control the clock.
Yeah, and someone else we haven't talked about yet, Alexander Madison. They kind of have a tandem there now, bringing him in from – I think they brought him in right straight from Minnesota.
Yeah.
He had a great play last week. Caught a pass in the flat, hurdled a defender, got into the end zone. He was kind of a waiver wire pickup in fantasy this week. So I think the 2 of them are going to be tough. Obviously, it's not Josh Jacobs. But they, my sort of take on the Raiders offense through 1 game, so it's not a big sample size, but they don't have any speedsters really. Trey Tucker, I believe, is kind of the closest thing they have to that out on the perimeter. But, you look at Adams, you look at Myers, both really, really good players. I think Adams is obviously elite, and I think Myers is a good number 2. But with those 2 receivers, the tight ends, and Zamir and Madison, there's not really any breakaway speed, big time, speedsters, playmakers that you're really worried about. But it's a lot of more slower possession guys. So it's definitely an interesting dynamic there with the Raiders offense.
I wanted to note one more thing about eliteness. Mr. Devontae Adams did have some high praise for Lamar earlier in the week. He said that he could be the most talented ball carrier ever. That's pretty impressive. Dawson, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, like, shoot, I could, like, you could only list really running backs, but like, dude, that was a quote I've never heard. Best ball carrier too.
That's a very large compliment, especially from a elite receiver who's been one of the best receivers by far in the last decade. That is a huge compliment. And I know players, say things all the time that, when they look back on it, it's like, all right, maybe I was a little over the top excessive. But either way, that's a huge compliment to Lamar from Devontae. And I don't know. That's all I really think. It's just a huge compliment, and I'm sure Lamar probably appreciates that. But he doesn't dig deep into that stuff, so he probably doesn't care, to be honest with you. Um, I mean, if Devontae likes him so much, he can hop over here to Baltimore if he wants to anytime.
Heck yeah.
I would take him. I would take him gladly.
Call him up.
That's been a big. It's funny how there's always some guys that are talked about at the beginning of the season as trade deadline candidates. Adams is already being talked about as a trade deadline candidate, so that could be interesting.
Yeah.
But another guy for the Raiders who has obviously the big title there, starting quarterback Gardner Minshew. I'm kind of a fan of Gardner. Like, I've always just rooted for him in the past. So, like, seeing him here on the Raiders last week, I actually watched the game. I don't know if it was just because I just wanted to watch football. It was kind of a bad game on paper, but I just did watch it. Minshew was like kind of just a game manager. I think it was Romo and Nance that were on the call. And Romo had high praise for him managing the game. It wasn't necessarily anything like special, but it was like that Madison play. He broke it down. He literally checked everyone on the field. Madison was the last guy, boom, and just let him make a play. Now, maybe against us, that play isn't happening. I mean, they've missed 2 big tackles, but like that's all they need. They need a few plays where, it's football. That kind of stuff happens. Minshew makes it happen. Brad, do you have any thoughts on Gardner?
He's definitely an interesting player, and I feel like sometimes in Ravens games, these are the type of quarterbacks that can get us.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was on the Colts last year. He was the Colts quarterback last year, and we lost to them in, I would say, the most miserable game of the season last year, excluding the AFC Championship. That was just, how many times can you kick yourself in the foot?
Rough.
But, he's obviously not that like elite guy. I think he doesn't have that elite arm. He can't throw the ball 75 yards down the field, like a Lamar, like a Mahomes, like an Allen. And he also doesn't really have the leg playmaking ability. I mean, he has some of it, but they're not going to be running zone reads. You don't have to worry about him in the run game, really. He had 2 turnovers last week, so he's also kind of a guy he's bound to make some mistakes. I think go ahead.
So sorry, but like I've always I agree with Zach. Like he's always kind of been like that guy that I kind of like as a quarterback. Like he's a very cool character in the league, and he's hard not to root for. Like he's a good dude. Like he's a quarterback that you love to see win and get the praise and stuff and get like the wins and stuff. But like Brad said, he's not like that elite playmaker. But it is crazy. I do agree with what Brad said. These are the quarterbacks that always give the Ravens trouble. I feel like every single season. There's always like that one quarterback who's like bottom half of the league that just makes our life miserable on a random Sunday in football season, and it's crazy. And not to mention, like he said, we did lose to Gardner last year, I'm pretty sure, and he was a starter in Indy, right? And yeah, that was a crap game. I don't even want to talk about that. That game was garbage, dude. That game was so bad. We kept shooting ourselves in the foot. The refs were terrible. People were dropping passes. It was just all around across the board. It was a miserable game. We shouldn't have lost. It was at home too.
That one and the Steelers game last year were just
oh my god,
horrendous.
The Steelers game, dude. That was bad. But yeah, it's hard not to root for Gardner. But this week we can't root for him. But I will say he is kind of a gunslinger. He plays hard. He's a game manager. And he's not the worst quarterback you're going to face. So you definitely can't overlook him and be like, oh yeah, like it's an easy win, but it's definitely not. They do have playmakers. They have an elite receiver. They have more than people probably give them credit for. But I mean, we're going to see what happens. This needs to be a game where the Ravens come out and just put their foot down and don't let up and make a statement almost. That we can't overlook what we did in Thursday night in Kansas City. I don't want people to look past that because the Ravens still played all the way to the very end of that game and still almost and could have won. But yeah, it's Gardner's for sure an interesting character. So it's gonna be interesting to see what he does against this tough defense in the first year under Zach Orr on Sunday. I mean, that's a big test for old Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I kind of put him in like a weird pedestal with like him and Baker. Like I just somehow just kind of cheer for him. But yeah, I just kind of love those guys in the league. That's a fun thing to talk about. But let's switch over to a big question here. Which non-QB needs to have a big game? I'm not sure we necessarily would have said Gardner if it was for the Raiders, but if we start with the Raiders, I started with saying Zamir White. I think the stats are like right there. The proof is in the pudding. Like Zamir White getting the ball a lot led to success for them. It meant keeping the other team off the field. It meant gashing them with run plays. And then especially in the Chargers game, the play action got open and Bowers got open. I mean, dude, it was honestly like they started to keep moving down the field. They just kept stalling at the end. Kind of settling for field goals or like 4th and 1 situations where they just kind of poop their pants. And it kind of sucked to watch. But like Zamir White, I think is a key to this game. I kind of side with you, Dawson. I don't think he's the most talented guy on the field, but I think he's good enough to where their team can rally around seeing big plays like that. Whenever last week against Chargers, Samir would get the first couple carries and maybe get like 2 or 3 yards, and they'd kind of shoot themselves in the foot with 3rd and 7, 3rd and long kind of situations. And people like Devontae and Jacoby Meyer couldn't bail them out. That's when their offense kind of went to stale. But Brad, who do you think for the Raiders, non-QB wise, needs to have a big game?
I'm going to go with Christian Wilkins. He had a really good game last week against the Chargers. And, you can talk about Max Crosby. You can talk about the whole D-line. But I think, Christian Wilkins being, more so, we saw Chris Jones have a really good game against the Ravens last week. Being on the interior, I mean, he also rushes on the edge a lot too. But with Voorhees playing guard, and we honestly don't know if it's going to be Falele or Cleveland this week. But I think if Wilkins, it's almost like if Wilkins is unable to do anything, it'd be a really bad day for the Raiders. So I think like Wilkins and Crosby are kind of bound to have good games. So it's what I'm saying is more so if neither of them really do much, they're probably in for a blowout. But I think trying to stop the run early if you're the Raiders is big. So yeah, I'll go with Christian Wilkins.
Yeah, there was kind of like a gauntlet happening last week. They were pushing against the Chargers run game so much, and eventually the Chargers broke through. Like J.K. Dobbins started having a game. He had one of the highest rushing games in the entire NFL. I mean, he looked really good, the former Raven. But I think Crosby is obviously going to have a good game against our O-line. It's kind of just there. It's going to happen. He's a defensive player of the year candidate. And we just, the Ravens just, the AFC North just loves playing elite pass rushers. They just love it. They also love having them in the division, which sucks too. But Dawson, non-QB that needs to have a good game. What do you think?
I think for the Raiders side of things, I think the toughest matchup for one specific unit in this game is going to be the Raiders offense versus the Ravens defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's got to be their star. I think it's got to be the veteran Tay Adams. I think if anything, the Raiders offense will get something going on the ground rather than through the air against this Ravens defense. So I do think Zamir White will have a pretty decent game. I'm not expecting the Ravens to shut him down. But I think if Tay Adams has a big game and he's able to break through this Ravens defense and get some plays going through the air, it will open up their offense a little bit more and allow them to disperse the ball elsewhere rather than just feeding Zamir White every single handoff, every single play. I don't know if he's going to have a big game against the Ravens defense. I kind of hope not, but then at the same time, I hope he gets a little bit because I have him in like 2 of my fantasy leagues. But Ravens football is way more important than fantasy. I don't care about fantasy when it comes to that. But all I say is that, if Tay Adams does have a good game and he's able to open up that offense, it would help the Raiders so much. And it would take some pressure off Gardner and Zamir White because I think they're just going to try to pound the rock, and try to run on this Ravens team. Because I think legitimately that's the only way they think they can get something going. As we've seen it in the past, the Ravens are susceptible to letting running backs at times just go off for no reason. And it doesn't really make any sense. So we'll see. But I think if anyone needs to have a big game for the Raiders, I think it's going to be in their toughest matchup against our defense. And I think it needs to be their veteran wide receiver, who's still a top 10 receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, that's kind of been the talk if he's like in that elite conversation still. But last week he was great. Last season he was great.
People are wild.
I also want to note Jacoby Myers. I feel like he tends to have big games against big teams. That's another person to watch. He's kind of their speedy guy if we're gonna give one, but like on the other hand, he's a good route runner. I think he could give our defense some trouble. For the Ravens, on the Ravens side of the ball, I'm going to start us off here. I want to throw out Mr. Mark Andrews as the non-QB that needs to have a big game. Obviously, a quiet week last week, but he was pumping up likely as much as anyone else, as much as we were pumped up watching the game. But I think Mark being a big name is what allows other players on our offense to be that good. If he's going to take eyes from the defense onto him and have a lesser game to make others better and give us a chance to win, I think that's important. But this week is different. Players like Hayden Hurst, they had some big catches against like cover 2 stuff against the Raiders. They seem to like have some gaps on the sidelines with a bunch of really offensive weapons. But yeah, I feel like the tight ends are going to be a big deal in this game. Obviously, I could put Likely here too, but I think Mark having an off week last week and everybody talking about it compared to how great Likely was, I feel like they can both be that, ketchup and mustard, peanut butter and jelly kind of combo. Let's get that going. Brad, who do you think needs to have a big game from the Ravens?
Yeah, just to touch on your point, yeah, the Chargers got some plays up the sideline there, some fake screens. I saw Hurst have a catch where he got really really hyped, which we know him to do after that play. But yeah, I'm gonna stay in the same, I'll stay in the trenches. I'll go with Rosengarten / McCary. Whoever's playing right tackle on Sunday needs to at least hold up. I'm pretty sure that they will be doing a better job than what happened on Thursday, but honestly, who knows with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins. I feel like, with Lamar, one of the only ways you can slow him down or stop him is get him rattled early. And when he has to scramble early or if he gets hit early, he maybe isn't as efficient in the passing game. I feel like when you look at some of his best passing games, like the Lions last year, the Dolphins last year, when he's going 350, almost 400, there's a clean pocket all game. And maybe he's even scrambling around in the third or fourth quarter, but I feel like he's so much better when he can start with a clean pocket. And that's what we need from the O-line, but especially Rosengarten or McCary. And one more thought there, I don't want them rotating. I would prefer just play one. I think it's hard to get in a groove. We used to have an issue with this with the running backs back in Greg Roman's day, where we'd be like, Gus or Dobbins, one of them is averaging like 7 yards a carry, then they take him out for a cold quarter and we don't see him. Like, I feel like alignment needs to get hot as well, just like a running back or receiver does. And personally, I think I'd go with McCary for the start if it's up to me and just play him all game. I think maybe you start Rosengarten after the bye, or you can sit him all year too. He doesn't have to play. So I'd go Rosengarten / McCary for my Ravens non-quarterback.
I think for Rosengarten,
those are both really good. I think I'm gonna kind of touch on both of those and roll into mine as it kind of correlates to it at the same time. I like Zach's point. I do like the Mark Andrews. If he has a big game, this would be really nice to see because it's truly a lethal 50-50 punch we have at tight end, and we have 2 really good tight ends, especially with Likely emerging as one of these fan favorites, league favorites you got. So if Mark Andrews can get back on track and establish himself as he's still here and have a big game, no matter what Likely does on the other side of him, that would be awesome to see. And again, that would open up the offense, and it would be nice to see Lamar and his guy Mark Andrews kind of reestablish that chemistry that's hasn't been there due to injury and stuff with all that stuff that happened last season. But that would be nice. And I agree with Brad. I'm praying to God whoever plays right tackle and who's on the right side of this line this week is ready. I hope they eat their cereal in the morning, dude, because you're in for a long day against that Raiders D line. I probably agree. If you're asking me personally who I want as far as right tackle, I am probably wanting to start Makari for the rest of the season if he does not get injured. I like the fact that we have a chance right now to sit Roger behind a veteran. Granted, he's not a star. I like Roger sitting behind that old line because he doesn't need to start right now. He does not need to be a day one starter. I would really like for him to sit and kind of learn and develop behind all those guys. And then, after the bye week or next season, week 1 or whatever, then you can pump him in. But I don't know if I'm throwing Roger Rosengarten out there this week at right tackle against Max Crosby. I just don't know if I'm doing it. That is a brutal task. I mean, that I don't care how good you are, if you're the first overall pick, Joe, or first tackle off the board, Joe Alt tackle, like that is a tough task. So I would probably agree that Makari has to have a huge game, and I hope he's a starter, and I hope he plays the full game like Brad mentioned. However, not to get crazy off task, mine is not a player or a quarterback or anything. It's actually a coach. I'm going to go offensive coordinator Todd Monken. I
Oh,
really, really want to see what this offense can become with Derrick Henry because right now, everyone on this offense is healthy. I mean, this offense right now is truly the best possible offense and injury situation or health situation that we're going to get all season long. Right now, every single player on this offense is healthy. Granted, Keaton Mitchell's hurt, but he's not the lead back.
Mhm.
Um, but I want to see what this offense. I want to see why Derrick Henry was brought over to Baltimore and what this offense can become if this offense is utilized in a very broad span way with Todd Monken utilizing all the weapons because you truly have two good receivers, you have two good tight ends, you have two pretty damn good running backs, and you got a work in progress offensive line, but you have weapons. Lamar's got weapons all over the field right now, whether people want to agree or not. Um, and I just want to see what this offense can become because last week in Kansas City, I know it's week one, but the offense was not really clicking and they were very out of sorts until pretty much the fourth quarter is when they started moving. So I think Todd Monken has to have a huge game this week, and this is kind of a game that you could go out and really show what this offense can be. I mean, you could score 35 points, 35, 40 points this week, and that would be nice to see, and that would build confidence for this offense, and it would be really nice to see them kind of establish themselves for the 24 season with Derrick Henry and a healthy Bateman and the 1-2 punch at tight end. It would be nice to see. Um, but I think Todd Monken this week has to have a great game. He has to call a great game and utilize the weapons big time and just really show what this offense is going to be.
yeah, I love that. I did want to touch on Rosengarten real quick. I think Harbaugh had a quote this week where he said that Rosengarten is a matter of when, not if. Like when he's going to be the capable starting right tackle instead of if he's ever going to be. I think he has the potential to be that kind of guy for us. It's just if Makari's doing great, like let him do it. Like let him play the entire game. I like after the bye. I like stuff like that. I think that sounds good. But yeah, Monken's a great pick. That was a perfect speech there from Dawson. Um, if the Raiders want to win, gentlemen, what's your main key that you point to? Brad, what do you think?
I think if I'm going to go with a specific thing, I think they need to force like 3 turnovers. I think you need to get a Lamar strip sack.
I like that.
Maybe you force a fumble on Derrick Henry one time, and then maybe you get a pick. Or maybe Ravens fumble on a kick return. I think that's kind of how mismatched this game is. When the Ravens lose to teams like this, it's because they turn the ball over 3 times. So I think that's sort of what the Raiders need to do. Just force turnovers. Doesn't necessarily need to be early. And at the same time, don't turn the ball over. I feel like if the Raiders even turn the ball over once, the game's kind of cooked from there. So
Yeah, I would agree. It's kind of I'm going to say something very similar. It kind of ties into what Brad just said. You got to get in their head early, whether that's Lamar Jackson or the offensive line, John Harbaugh, the team as a whole. You got to get inside the Ravens' head early and show that you're not here to back down and lose by 40. So whether that's absolutely demolishing the offensive line and putting pressure on Lamar early and getting him rattled and off his game real early in the game, turnovers are a big part, of course. Whether that's making a key fourth down stop, it's just stuff like that. Like you're gonna have to get in the Ravens' head because I truly think if both teams are on their A game, I don't think the Ravens have an issue winning this game. That's if both teams are playing their best football. However, we've seen plenty of these games in the past of the Ravens. We've seen them walk down to the other team and lose or keep it way closer than it had to be. And this could very well be one of those games. So I'm not overlooking them whatsoever, but if both teams are playing their hot football game, it's going to be the Ravens' victory. But they cannot come out and walk down to the Raiders. They have to stay on their A game. They can't let the Raiders get in their head. And I think if the Raiders get in the Ravens' head early on, it could rattle the Ravens. And I don't even know what could happen from there. We could see stupid interceptions. We could see bad plays. We could see fumbles. We could see like just
Drops.
all sorts of stuff. We all know. We all know what I'm talking about. We've all seen it before.
Yeah, like I kind of have a little background to mine that I will explain, but again, I'm kind of like ringing the same bell. I think the Raiders have to get the run game going a lot, but on the other hand, I think they need to stop the opposing run game. Like the Chargers got to do almost whatever they wanted with JK, and he hardly had any carries. Like I saw Marlon Humphrey's podcast earlier this week, and he actually was like kind of making fun of J.K. Dobbins a little bit. Said he had like peg leg, like he can't like get the second level of the run. Like he can't go. Like he's never gone.
It kind of looks like he's running, and like one of his legs is straight while he's like running.
Isn't
with
it
the
weird?
other one.
Like, dude, I had to just watch like the like some of the highlights, and I was like, dude, he's like gone. Like he has like 10 yards of distance, and then all of a sudden Raiders just come in flying. And I'm like, what? So I'm not necessarily sure that's Derrick Henry level speed that he can reach that and just get going like that. But I mean, shoot, dude, like they gave up a lot of big plays in that way. And this Chargers offense got to get cooking from that. I think they need to stop the run. But that's just going to be really difficult. I mean, Derrick Henry's there, Lamar Jackson's there. I think someone like Justice Hill, I think we talked about it a little in like post game or in the Q&A that Justice Hill needs a few more carries, just mixing it up like speeds and stuff and different looks too. But I kind of lean there. For on the Ravens side, if the Ravens want to win, what do they need to do, Dawson?
I think it's the exact opposite of what you just said. I think they need to establish the run game. I think they need to run, and run.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to have to pass, but I think this game needs to be run heavy. I want to see Derrick Henry with like 20 carries. I want to see Justice Hill with another 10. Like, I'm serious. You need to ground and pound, run through this team. I love the guy, but if J.K. Dobbins was able to do it last week, there's no way Derrick Henry's not able to do it.
The peg leg, yep.
And JK, his talent's never been an issue. He's a very good running back, and he's always shown that he was when he's healthy. Health is the issue. So I wasn't surprised to see him go off last week because it was like we knew he could do that. He always has when he was healthy. But if JK's able to do that, and one leg that he has, there's no way Derrick Henry can't do it. And I mean, good luck, Raiders. I mean, I know they got a damn good D line and their defense isn't that bad, but Derrick Henry, if you get him going, dude, and you can rotate him and out with Justice Hill and stuff and get Lamar running and stuff, good luck. And I think the Ravens, if they establish the run game and they start getting 4 or 5 yards a pop through this game, there's no way the Raiders can win this from Baltimore if they can just chew the clock, rack up points, and keep running. I think it's a no-brainer game plan, and hopefully they're able to execute it.
Yeah, I would say Ravens defense needs to keep the offense in front of them. I think if you get in a situation where they catch a few bombs over the defense, maybe another coverage bust with the new DC, Zach Orr, I think that's kind of what you need to do. Just keep them in front of you, keep them, out of the end zone, and you'll be fine. You'll get red zone stops throughout the game. Just don't allow easy one-play touchdowns, and I think the Ravens come away with the win.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards like really big game in the rush game. I feel like we've all kind of hit on that a little, but I'm excited to see that. I'm pumped for that. Going into some final score predictions here, gentlemen. I'm going to start us off here. I think the Ravens get this done. I think we're all on the same page here. 27-17. It's kind of that in that by 9 points range. So I felt kind of good about it, but yeah, I think they get this done easy fashion. I do see since last week that Madison touchdown was kind of like just like a really lucky play in my head, in my eyes, at least. I feel like they can get a few of those this week, especially with Zach Orr in the defense. Maybe they just kind of have a big rush play or a big bomb play to a receiver or something, but that's just kind of where I lean with it. Dawson, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Ravens come into this matchup and know the stakes, know what's ahead of them, and I think they get the job done. I don't want to say they walk over the Raiders, but I think it's a pretty dominant victory. I think they win 28-13. I just think they get it done, man, and I have full faith in this team this week. Nothing to me is very concerning about this matchup. But I do like what Brad said there a couple minutes ago. Keep the offense in front of you. Do not let them get behind you, because if you let them get behind you, it could be a long day. And once that happens, it seems to just never end. So keep the Raiders offense in front of you, play damn good offense, run the ball, and I think they win 28-13.
Yeah, I was struggling whether to pick like a blowout, like a 20-point blowout or sort of a closer game. I'm going to end up going Ravens win 23-16.
Oh, close.
I think the Raiders maybe score 1 touchdown, the Ravens score 2 touchdowns, and then we just get a bunch of field goals. I think the Ravens are in this weird position where you just played the season opener against the best team in the league also in the hardest place to play in the league, and now you come home to playing probably a bottom third team and you're home. I don't know. I just feel like it can be a little bit hard to like bounce back from that. And we always say like one game at a time, but even as fans, it's so hard not to think about Cowboys, Bills, Bengals back to back to back right after this. So I think there's definitely going to be some effects of that. And also with the O-line possibly struggling against Crosby and Wilkins. But at the same time, I still think the Ravens, I got them winning by 7, but I don't think it's going to be some come down to the wire game. I think it'll be a pretty easy victory by the time we get to the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I will say, I really, really, really hope it's one of those games where we can get up like big time towards the end and we can just rest our starters and just move to week 3.
Also,
Just being honest. I'm not saying it's going to be. I'm not predicting that.
Yeah.
I'm saying I hope.
Just hope.
I would love to see, and I know you guys would too, Lamar maybe have like 1 carry in this game, 2 carries to sort of balance out what happened against the Chiefs last week. I think
we need to be healthy.
Yeah, I think there was some press conference where someone asked Lamar if he thinks he could get through the season running like he did in the Chiefs game. And he said something like, I hope I don't have to find out about that, or something like he doesn't want to run that much.
Yeah.
So,
that was a lot.
Hopefully we can keep him on his feet.
Yeah, that was a funny thing that you said. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. That we were predicting a Ravens dub, a pretty hefty one, or in some other eyes, maybe just a close one, just from the scoreboard. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, tuning in. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button, subscribe, rate it if you're listening on Spotify, and we will see you guys post game. Thanks again.
See you guys. Peace.
See you.